That night, when I saw those amber eyes burning through the Carolina pines, I realized everything wildlife officials had told us was a lie. It was late October, and the Blue Ridge Mountains had that particular silence that only comes when nature holds its breath. The kind of silence that makes you aware of your own heartbeat. I was driving Highway 221, somewhere between Boone and Blowing Rock, North Carolina, when the fog rolled in thick as cotton. My headlights barely cut through it. The road twisted through dense hardwood forest, oak, hickory, poplar trees standing like sentinels in the mist. The temperature had dropped to the low 40s, and moisture clung to everything. My windshield wipers fought a losing battle against the condensation. That's when I saw it cross the road. Not a deer. Not a bear. Something else entirely. A massive cat. Jet black. Moving with a fluid grace that seemed almost unnatural. It didn't hurry. Didn't panic at my headlights. It simply walked, glided, from the left shoulder to the right, disappearing into the laurel thickets like smoke dissolving into darkness. The entire sighting lasted maybe 4 seconds. But in those 4 seconds, my understanding of North American wildlife shattered completely. I pulled over, hands trembling on the steering wheel. My rational mind scrambled for explanations. A large dog? No, the proportions were all wrong. The head too broad, the tail too long and thick, the shoulders too powerful. A mountain lion? Perhaps, but mountain lions are tawny, tan, never black. I sat there for 20 minutes, engine idling, watching the spot where it had vanished. The fog pressed against my windows. Somewhere in the distance, an owl called. But the forest where that creature had disappeared remained absolutely, profoundly silent. That night changed everything for me. Because what I saw shouldn't exist. According to every wildlife authority, every zoologist, every official database, melanistic big cats don't live in North America. Black panthers, they tell us, are jaguars or leopards from other continents. Here in the United States, they simply don't exist. But I saw one. And as I would soon discover, I was far from alone. Over the following months, I became obsessed. I started reaching out to rural communities, wildlife forums, old newspaper archives. What I found stunned me. Tom Harrigan, a cattle rancher from Liberty County, Texas, told me about the morning in March 2019 when he found 3 of his calves dead in the pasture. Throats ripped clean out, he said, his voice still carrying disbelief. Whatever killed them dragged a 300-pound calf nearly half a mile. Fish and Wildlife said it was coyotes. Coyotes. He laughed bitterly. I found tracks. Paw prints bigger than my hand. 4 toes, retractable claws. That ain't no coyote. Sarah Mitchell, a schoolteacher from Pocahontas County, West Virginia, described an encounter from 2017. She'd been driving home from evening parent-teacher conferences around 9 p.m. when her headlights caught something on Route 39. It was sitting in the middle of the road, she told me. Just sitting there, staring at me. Completely black. The size of a German shepherd but built like something prehistoric. Massive shoulders, a head as big as a basketball. When it finally moved, it didn't run. It walked into the woods like it owned them. Like I was the intruder, not it. Deputy Marcus Webb from Harlan County, Kentucky, filed an official incident report in August 2021. He'd responded to a call about unusual animal sounds near a hiking trail. I saw it clear as day, he told me over the phone. Early morning, sun just coming up. This black cat, easily 150 pounds, moving through the undergrowth about 40 yards from the trail. Long tail, curved at the end. Moved without a sound. I radioed it in, but by the time backup arrived, it was gone. My supervisor told me to refile the report as a large dog sighting. Said it would cause unnecessary panic. The Kowalski family, Polish immigrants running a small farm outside Hot Springs, Arkansas, showed me photographs from their trail camera. Dated January 2023. The images were grainy, taken at night with infrared, but unmistakable. A large, dark feline shape moving past their chicken coop. They lost 8 chickens that night. The game warden said it was a bobcat, Mrs. Kowalski told me. Have you ever seen a bobcat that big? That tall? With a tail that long? She shook her head. They don't want to admit what's out there. I interviewed truck drivers who'd seen them crossing highways in Louisiana and Arkansas at 3 a.m., their eyes reflecting green gold in the headlights. Hunters who'd spotted them from tree stands in Tennessee and Alabama, watching from ridgelines at dawn. Park rangers who whispered off the record about tracks they'd found, scat they'd collected, sounds they'd heard, but were told to keep quiet to avoid public hysteria. One elderly woman in the Ozarks, Betty Lou Sanders, age 79, invited me to her porch. She served sweet tea and told me about the black Panther her grandfather used to talk about in the 1940s. He said they'd been in these mountains long before white folks came, she said. Said the Cherokee knew about 'em. Called 'em ghost cats. Said they'd disappear for generations, then come back when the forests got quiet again. I found historical records buried in county archives. Newspaper clippings from the 1800s describing black catamounts and Negro panthers in Virginia, Georgia, the Carolinas. Bounty records offering payment for their pelts. Sketches in naturalist journals from the 1890s showing large, melanistic cats alongside mountain lions and bobcats. Then those records simply stopped. Around the 1920s and 30s, all mention of black panthers vanished from official documentation, as if someone had decided they never existed at all. But the sightings never stopped. They just stopped being reported, or rather, stopped being believed. I contacted Dr. Jennifer Hartwell, a wildlife biologist at the University of Georgia specializing in large carnivores. Her explanation was firm, almost rehearsed. Melanistic mountain lions, that is, black mountain lions, have never been documented in North America, she told me. Not a single verified specimen. No pelts, no bodies, no DNA samples. What people are seeing are likely large dogs, bears at certain angles, or misidentified known animals under poor lighting conditions. What about the photographs? I asked. The trail camera images? Almost universally too grainy or too distant for positive identification. The human eye, especially under stress or in poor visibility, is remarkably unreliable. Add in cultural mythology, people expect to see mystery cats, so they interpret ambiguous shapes as mystery cats. It was a reasonable answer. Scientific. Evidence-based. But it didn't explain the tracks. The claw marks on trees 12 feet up. The livestock kills with fang punctures too wide for any known North American predator. The hundreds, thousands, of consistent reports from credible witnesses across multiple states over multiple decades. I spoke with Dr. Marcus Chen, a geneticist who'd studied melanistic jaguars in Central and South America. Melanism in big cats is caused by a recessive gene, he explained. In jaguars and leopards, it's well documented. But in mountain lions? We've never found the gene. It's theoretically possible, but statistically unlikely. Unlikely, I repeated. But not impossible? He hesitated. Not impossible. But we'd need a specimen to prove it. The problem, I realized, was circular logic. Officials said black panthers don't exist because there's no physical evidence. But any physical evidence, tracks, scat, sightings, gets dismissed because black panthers don't exist. I found a retired fish and wildlife officer, Robert Canfield, willing to speak candidly. We met at a diner in Asheville. He was 73, gray-bearded, weathered. I saw 3 in my career, he said quietly. 3 separate occasions. Once in the Nantahala, once near the Tennessee border, once in Pisgah Forest. All black. All unmistakably big cats. You know what I was told each time? Misidentification. Don't file it. Don't mention it. It'll undermine public trust in wildlife management. Why? I asked. He stirred his coffee slowly. Because if we admit they're out there, we have to manage them, protect them, study them. That means funding, resources, public attention. It opens a Pandora's box. Easier to just deny. But denial doesn't make something disappear. I examined the scientific explanations again. Escaped exotic pets, released zoo animals, misidentified bears or dogs. Each theory had holes. Escaped pets? Possible for isolated incidents, but not for reports spanning 200 years across 20 states. Released zoo animals? Same problem. Too widespread, too consistent over time. Misidentification? Some sightings, certainly. But all of them? Hundreds of experienced hunters, farmers, law enforcement officers. All wrong? The most compelling alternative theory came from Dr. Amanda Reeves, a cryptozoologist, though she preferred anomalous wildlife researcher. What if, she proposed, melanistic mountain lions are simply extremely rare, so rare that bodies are almost never recovered? Mountain lions already have massive territories, sometimes 300 square miles. They're solitary, elusive. Now imagine a melanistic variant, even rarer, even more cautious. It would be like finding a needle in a continental haystack. She showed me population models. If melanistic mountain lions occurred at even a 1% rate in the broader population, and if they preferred deep wilderness, the chances of recovering remains would be infinitesimal. Especially in the American South, where thick vegetation, scavengers, and decomposition work quickly. Absence of evidence, she said, is not evidence of absence. Especially when we're talking about one of the most elusive predators on Earth. I didn't know what to believe anymore. The scientist in me wanted proof, a body, DNA, irrefutable photographs. But the witness in me, the person who'd seen those amber eyes in the fog, knew what I'd seen. And I knew I wasn't crazy. 6 months after my initial sighting, I returned to that stretch of Highway 221. Same time of year. Same weather conditions. Part of me hoped I wouldn't see anything, that I could chalk it up to exhaustion, imagination, the power of suggestion. But another part of me needed to know. I parked at the same pull-off around 10 p.m. The October fog rolled in right on schedule, thick and ghostly. I sat in my truck with the engine off, windows down, listening. For an hour, nothing. Just the drip of condensation from leaves, the distant rush of a creek, the occasional rustle of small animals in the underbrush. Then I heard it. A sound I'd never heard before. Low, resonant, somewhere between a growl and a cough. It vibrated in my chest. The kind of sound that triggers something primal in the human brain, something ancient that says, "Predator." I turned on my flashlight slowly, sweeping the beam across the tree line. And there, about 50 yards into the forest, 2 eyes reflected back at me. Amber gold, unblinking, set wide apart in a broad head. The creature didn't move. Didn't flee. It simply stood there, massive and dark, watching me with what I can only describe as intelligence. Calculation. I don't know how long we stared at each other. Time seemed to compress and expand simultaneously. My heart hammered. My hands went cold. Every instinct screamed at me to start the truck and leave. But I didn't, because in that moment I understood something profound. This animal, whatever it was, had been here long before highways and streetlights and wildlife management databases. It had survived when its habitat was hunted to near extinction, when wolves and bison were eradicated, when the forests were clear-cut and the mountains strip-mined. It had survived by becoming invisible, by adapting, by learning that humans were dangerous, unpredictable, best avoided. The forests are coming back now. Slowly. The eastern deciduous forests are recovering, second-growth hardwoods reclaiming old farmland. Deer populations have exploded. Elk have been reintroduced. Wild turkeys thrive. And with them, perhaps, the predators are returning too. The eyes blinked once, slowly, almost deliberately. Then the creature turned, not hurried, not panicked, and melted into the darkness. No sound. No broken branches. Just gone. I sat in my truck until dawn, trembling, exhilarated, terrified, transformed. I've spoken to over 200 witnesses now. I've examined photographs, plaster casts of tracks, historical records, genetic studies. I've argued with scientists and listened to storytellers. I've walked the forests at night and felt the weight of invisible eyes. And I've come to a simple conclusion. Whether science acknowledges it or not, whether officials admit it or not, something remarkable is moving through America's forests. Something that shouldn't exist, according to our current understanding. But existence doesn't require permission from textbooks or government agencies. The wilderness is wider than we think. Deeper. More mysterious. There are still blank spaces on our maps, still creatures that have learned to live in the margins, in the forgotten places between what we know and what we've forgotten. I think of Betty Lou Sanders on her porch, sweet tea sweating in the humidity, telling me about her grandfather's stories. "They were always here," she'd said. "We just stopped looking." Maybe she's right. Maybe we built our world so bright and loud that we forgot what darkness and silence can hide. Maybe our certainty about what exists and what doesn't says more about our limitations than about reality. I think about Tom Harrigan standing over his dead calves, Marcus Webb watching that dark shape move through the Kentucky undergrowth, Sarah Mitchell frozen behind her steering wheel as something impossible walked away from her headlights. I think about those amber eyes in the fog, watching me with an intelligence that made me feel small, temporary, a brief interruption in something far older and more enduring than my civilization. And I think about the question that haunts me now, every time I drive a dark road through the mountains, every time I hear something moving in the woods at night. If they're not supposed to be here, why do so many of us still see them?